Masechet Baba Batra Daf Ayin Aleph Hamud Aleph, 13 lines down by the Gemara. Ma'ishna Mecher or Ma'ishna Matana. How come the Mishnah differentiated between when you're selling something, then the items are on the field are excluded, and in a present, when you're selling something, those things are included? Gemara says Piresh Ribida ben Kunzel Rabbi explained Ze Piresh Vezelo Piresh. In the case of the gift, he specified he's giving it to him. In the case of the seller, he didn't specify it. Simple. Gemara says, "Wait, Ze Piresh Vezelo Piresh." Our Mishnah specifically mentioned that there it was no specification made, and therefore both cases were that there was no specifications made about what was included. So they both have the same scenario. How come one's included? How come one included? Whereas Ella, what he meant to say is in the case of the gift, he should have excluded. He should have excluded something if he didn't want to give it, and therefore, when he didn't exclude it, it must be he's giving everything. But in the case of the seller, you don't have to identify what you're not selling, you only identify what you are selling. The guy who told to someone else. He told witnesses, give a gift to Reuven from my house. Give a gift from me, a house, to this guy that can hold 100 barrels. They found a house that can hold 120 barrels, but not only 100. He said give him 100. He didn't say give him 120. Therefore, don't give him anything. Rashi says no. Mishnah says, when do we say that only by sale, that you don't give generously? Regarding gift you give. We see when you're giving a gift, you give it generously. You are giving it generously over here, and therefore you would have to give him the prorated amount of the house. Okay. If someone makes his field hekdesh, he also makes other things hekdesh, even he makes other things hekdesh in it or not. It was machlok in the Mishnah. Amar Ravuna says, even though Hachamim said in the Mishnah, if I buy two trees in your field, I don't acquire the land there. And if the opposite happens, if I sold land and I kept two of my trees for myself, yes, I do hold my trees. So I feel Rabbi Huna seemingly holds that even according to Rabbi Akiva, who holds that a seller sells generously, he'll sell everything except for the item. That only applies regarding a field and a pit. He'll sell even the path to it. Because those don't hurt the ground around it. Well, not the but regarding trees, if you're selling trees which hurt the ground around it, and therefore what would happen if I don't retain the land around the trees, what's going to happen? The buyer could tell him, take your tree and kish it, it's hurting my land. And therefore Rabbi Kiva would agree that in case of a tree, the seller will not sell the land around the tree in order to preserve it. Tonight, Mishnah. Rishon says, if someone's making his field hekdesh, lo hekdish ela haruf hamurkav v'sidan shekma. He is not making it hekdesh anything else in the field unless it's a grafted carob tree and a cut sycamore tree. The time of our Mishnah, Batra mentioned on that. Amar Rishon held, Matam, what's the reason why those two things are included? Because these things get nourished from the hekdesh field, and therefore they should be hekdesh as well. If you were to hold a person who sells the field but retains the land as well, what's the problem? If he's retaining the land, then it'll be nourishing from his own land. So why would Rabbi Shimon disagree with that? Mar says Rabbi Shimon maybe Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva, that when you're selling it generously, and therefore you're also making hekdesh generously, and you're not including land, and therefore you can't keep the trees because it's nourishing from the land. Versus Kirabanan, so Rav Huna holds like Rabbanan Pshita, then you don't need to sell anything. Hachamim hold that. Hachamim hold that you give it generously. You don't hold the land. You can't keep the trees anymore. So what's the hidush? The Gemara says no. Nafkamina, the difference is between Rav Huna is the inafle hadar shatilu. If the trees fall down, the guy who had the tree, the seller, can replant them. That's the hidush. Meaning, According to Hamim, who say that you don't have the land around it, they might hold that if the tree falls down, you can't replant it because you don't have anything left. You only have the trees. Rav Huna's chidush is that if the trees fall down, you can replant it even though you don't have the land surrounding the trees. Okay. ומצית במקומות לרבי שמעון עקיבא, כן רבי שמעון hold like רבי עקיבא, והתניא ברייתא says elsewhere, הקדיש שלושה עינות, so somebody להקדש 3 trees ממטה 10 לבית סאה. These 3 trees next to each other were planted in a area that is 10 trees to a bet se'ah, right? That's considered a significant amount of field for making something hekdesh. There's 10 trees to a bet se'ah ratio, and there's 3 trees that fit that mold. If he does those 3 trees, because that's significant as if it's its own field, not only is that those trees become hekdesh, the land around it becomes hekdesh, any minor trees between them become hekdesh, that whole area becomes hekdesh. So we see from there that it makes other things hekdesh. Therefore, when you're redeeming it, you have to redeem the area for a chomer barley per 50 shekels of the 49 years. Yani every year goes down 1 shekel coin. You don't have to add money for the trees. The point is that you're buying out the field. You don't have to pay for the trees separately. If it's less than that space, or it was more than that space, and if it's planted closer or farther, or if he made the hekdesh consecutively and not at the same time, you don't make the land hekdesh because it wasn't enough as a field. And the trees in between them don't become hekdesh because you only did the trees, and therefore it's individual and not the entire land around it. Therefore, if you want to redeem it, you redeem the trees by themselves for their value and not as a field. Not only that, not only if you did those cases, but even if you redeemed, you made the trees hekdesh, and then you made the land hekdesh afterward. Seemingly, now everything's hekdesh, right? And therefore should be one redeeming. Now, if you want to redeem it, you first redeem the trees according to the value. Then you have to do that special calculation for how much the field will cost separately. Right? The hidush is that even though the trees and the land are not both hekdesh, right? In my eyes, they're both hekdesh, but because they were makdish separately, they have 2 separate redeemings having been done. So even though you're redeeming hekdesh in one shot, you have to redeem them separately, the trees by themselves and the field by themselves. Now, Juani, who's this according to? Who holds like this? That if you're doing less than 3 trees, the land's not included. If you don't hold it, we know that he holds if you're selling something generously. So if you're selling something, you sell generously, and it should be included. The Hosha came out that definitely by making hekdesh, and therefore it should be included. He holds stingily. You sell stingily, but he would hold that if someone make hekdesh, you are also being generous. So it doesn't fit either of them. So Pshita Rabbi Shimon, he must be that Braitas according to Rabbi Shimon, that in our Mishnah that holds that if you're making something hekdesh, you are doing it stingily, and the other things are not included, like a pit or a wine press. And if not only that, you're not only excluding other things, the Rabbi Shimon, the only opinion that holds if you're making something hekdesh, you're doing it with stinginess. But also, if you're doing less than that minimum of 3 trees, the land that the trees are on are not even hekdesh. You don't have to redeem as a field. You just have to redeem the trees by themselves. Amen.